Dear readers, today I want to teach you that readers can learn life lessons from books by rereading the ending and thinking, how did the trouble get fixed? And what did the character realize or learn? Love, Miss Cortade. Now I want to show you a picture of something that I'm sure is familiar to all of you. Have you ever been to a Chinese restaurant and gotten a fortune cookie for dessert? You get those little puffy envelope cookies and you break it in two, and inside there's a little piece of paper with a fortune or life lesson. And this tells you how to live a good life with advice like make new friends but keep the old. Or it might say, don't ever give up, keep trying and you can do it. Stories are like fortune cookies. When you open up a story, you find there's a little life lesson inside each one. Let's look at our chart. We're starting bend 3 today, which is called Readers Learn Lessons. And this bend is all about uncovering all of the lessons that we can learn from books. And today, we are talking about how to find the lesson. So what we're going to do is reread the ending and think, how did the trouble get fixed? Okay, stories are like adventures in our life. After I do something really fun, I usually look back and think, I should do that more often, or I'm glad I kept trying until I could do it, or I like helping people. Those are life lessons I learned. So it makes sense that when a story is over, it leaves a life lesson behind for the reader to learn too. Now, we all know this story. This story is called Ish by Peter H Reynolds. Remember, it's a story where the boy learns that his paintings can be flower-ish or vase-ish, right? He loves drawing. His brother made fun of him, and so he stopped drawing, but then he discovered that his sister loves his drawings, right? And she says, well, this is one of my favorites. And he says, well, that's supposed to be a vase of flowers, but it doesn't look like one. And she says, but it's vase-ish. And you know what? He looked closer and he studied his drawings on his wall and he saw them in a whole new way. And he says, they do look ish. And then he felt really inspired to start drawing and painting again, right? So what life lesson did we learn from Ish? Well, I'm gonna pull out my life lesson, and we learned, do your best. Your best is good enough. You know what? Your drawings might not look like a professional artist's drawings, but you know what? If you do your best is good enough now. And if you keep practicing, you'll get better and better, right? Let's set that one aside. You guys also know this book, Fraud and Toad Are Friends by Arnold Lobel. And in this book, there's lots of stories, but let's go through some of them. Remember, in this story, Toad didn't want to get out of bed. And so Frog helped him get out of bed and see how the world was looking in spring. In this story, Toad wasn't feeling good. And so Frog was trying to tell him a story to make him feel better, right? And remember, in this story, Toad loses his buttons and Frog sticks by him to help him find his button. And in the last story, the letter, Toad was sitting on his front porch. He was sad because he wasn't getting any mail. He kept waiting and waiting. And Toad finally went home and wrote him a nice letter so that he would get some mail and he would feel better. So from this story, I learned friends are always there for each other. They always help each other through hard times, and they always try to cheer each other up. Now I'm going to show you another story. Now I don't have the book, but I do have a picture of the book. Do any of you recognize this story? Now if you said The Tortoise and the Hare, you are correct. So now it's your turn to try to find the lesson. Think about this story. Remember how it goes. Now remember, the tortoise and the hare were going to race each other. And the hare thought, oh, this is so easy because the tortoise is so slow. And she got really arrogant, really cocky, right? She was like, I don't need to try hard for this because he's so slow. This is so easy for me. So she got something to eat. She stopped and had a nap. And guess what? The tortoise very slowly and very steadily kept going. And now remember what happens in the end. Here's actually an illustration of the end. Who wins? Does the really fast hare win? Or does the tortoise win, who's very slow and steady? Yeah, you're right. The tortoise wins because he doesn't go take a rest. He doesn't go have a snack. He just keeps going. Now think about what the life lesson is here. And I know you talked about this with Miss Michelle from Ravens Theater. Think back to what you learned from this story. Now, if you said slow and steady wins the race, then you remember what we talked about with Ms. Michelle. Now, I like to write lessons in my own words, so I rewrote it so that it's a little more understandable to me. I wrote, you can be more successful. Now, remember, successful means that you're doing a really good job. So you can be more successful by doing things slowly and steadily than by acting quickly and carelessly. And this is something that you can apply to your work. Right? Now, if you do your work, you take your time, you look for mistakes, it's much better than if you just quickly do your work and you're just careless about it and you don't really care if you make mistakes, right? So this is something you can apply right into your life. So remember, readers, think about the trouble in the story and what the character learned to figure out the life lesson. Okay? Remember, it has to be a life lesson that everyone can use, not just the character. So like in our story here, we're not thinking of a lesson that just the rabbit or the hare can use or just the turtle. We want to apply the lesson to our lives and to everyone's lives too. Today we learned that you can learn a life lesson from every story you read. It's a lesson that you could use to make your life better. Today and every day when you read, think about the life lessons you can learn from the stories. Think about the ending, the trouble, and how it got fixed. Think about what the character realized or learned at the end. This helps you know the life lesson the story left behind for you to remember always. All right, readers, off you go.